name it, we did it. New Year's Eve was a specialty and became quite famous, and we often filled farewell the last guest at 5 a.m. in the morning, or not at all, depending if they were upright or not. This with his other loves, scouting, tennis, swimming, golf, football, go the Bombers, music, dancing, he could be a hard act to follow. But for over years, another major part of his life was his commitment and dedication to the Lodge of Good Companions, which he still tried to visit as often as he could, even though his health wasn't good. And in latter years, he was a volunteer driver for the Wantirna branch of the Salvation Army. But all the while, the kids were growing up, but we still managed a few great holidays with them and some on their own. But then it didn't seem possible, but before we knew it, we were blessed with the most precious gifts of all, 3 of the most fantastic grandchildren who were the light of Bruce's life. One cannot begin to detail 57 years of marriage. Being together was sometimes smooth sailing and sometimes pretty rocky. But the most wonderful thing was that through thick and thin, sadness and joy, we were there for each other, helping each other to cope, always with respect, loyalty, love and friendship. And I dare say losing Andy was the biggest test of this of all. I know Brute is with me in the love we have for our children and friends, who have been there for us through these times, and we know without them we couldn't and wouldn't have managed. Well, through all our lives, doll, you have fought health. Heart bypasses, crappy kidneys, pacemakers, stents, thyroid, and throw in a bit of menus to boot. How you managed this was incredible. But you did so, as the nurses said recently, always with a grin and a wink. When possibly, sometimes you could have yelled, enough. But I always said, pardon the expression, you were a stubborn bug. At this time round, the spirit was willing, but the body could go no further. We love you and we're sure that you, Oscar, Andy Cree, Az, and so many of our dear departed family and friends are reunited. So till we meet again, doll, Godspeed.
Thank you, Hattie. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody in the admire your spirit and determination to honour your husband and you. Bruce valued his many friends he made over the different chapters of his life. A lifelong mate from school days, Max Rolls, will now share his memories. Thank you, Max. You I've seen that Teddy somewhere.
Bravo, Paddy. I'm Max Rolls, but I want you all to meet Teddy Biddington. Bruce loved his Teddy. Young Bruce loved his Teddy. Teddy's going to help me. I was privileged to be a close friend of Bruce for over 70 years. For the last 40 years, our homes have been 1,000 kilometres apart, but this special friendship always held strong. Teddy and I deem it a privilege to say a few words at this time. My friendship with Bruce began in Wood Street, Sandringham. The Biddingtons were close neighbours of my twin cousins, Helen and Jeff Rolls. It was through the cousins that I first met Bruce, his dad, Fred, and Mum, Mrs. Biddle. The Davies family were neighbours on the other side of my cousin's house. Son Kevin was a schoolmate of Bruce, as was Rod Amsden, both lifelong friends. Much later at Hampton High School, Peter Brown joined this friendship of the Five Musketeers. Sport, dancing and girls received much more attention than our studies. Bruce excelled in all four pursuits. We all played Aussie rules for the school footy team at Hampton High. And on Saturdays we played for East Sandringham under 16 side and later for Hampton Scouts under 18s. Bruce and Kevin were the star footballers. Kevin was a superb athlete. Bruce and I were competition swimmers. Peter was a handy swimmer and an excellent diver. Rod finally found his sporting niche as a skier. Bruce and I played a lot of competition tennis together and were coached by Ken McIver. Ken was father-in-law of Ken Rosewall. Saturday mornings, Bruce and I would have a coaching session with Ken McIver before our competition tennis match in the afternoon. Mrs. Biddington was a good cook. Bruce was a big eater. Every coaching session, Ken would demand that we sharpen up our footwork and then accuse Bruce of either a huge breakfast or a very late night with the girls, or both. After high school, we all found good jobs. Bruce and Rod as trainee industrial chemists, Kevin and I as trainee metallurgists. Peter was a born salesman and went selling industrial chemicals and studied hypnotism and hypnotherapy. All four trainees successfully studied 6-year part-time courses for an associate diploma at RMIT. At least once a week we would meet for a cheap meal before evening lectures. There was a cheap and nasty Greek club close to RMIT College. All men playing cards and drinking ouzo and grappa, serving a dinner plate of the day, usually Greek style roast lamb or lamb shanks, with a mountain of veggies and gravy, about 5 bob. Bruce was always served the most food and the choicest cuts of meat, until we decided to stop going there. Steve the Greek, waiter, doorman and hefty bouncer, was growing a bit too fond of Bruce. It was time to eat elsewhere, if you know what I mean.
Oh no.
Bruce was a handsome young man, and the girls flocked around him, so I never went short. We had many road trips and holidays together. One long weekend we musketeers chased a bunch of girls to Marysville. Girls in a cosy guest house, and we boys camped nearby in the bush. Violent storm during the night, and a huge tree fell very close to our tent. Frightened and saturated, we went home next day, young ardour thoroughly dampened. Easter we chased the same bunch of girls to Lorne. They stayed in a rented cottage, which we nicknamed the Virgin's Retreat, and hung this hand-painted sign on their front gate. I think we musketeers slept in our cars. Before breakfast one morning, we boys raced our cars flat chap between Lorne and Apollo Bay on the Great Ocean Road. Indestructible young hoons, luck favoured the stupid. Most musketeers went on a road trip to the Gold Coast one Christmas holiday. Bruce and Rod had booked us into a raunchy old guest house in Coolangatta. Coincidence or concoction? Bruce and Rod would never confess which. But Pat Hughes, a girlfriend I had not seen for a whole year, was at this guest house for the same time. Like the old song goes, It starts all over again. Pat and I were married just one year later. I prefer to believe that the romantic reunion was concocted. Thanks, Bruce and Rod. After our wedding reception, Bruce and Patty drove us to the airport for a flight to honeymoon in Cairns. By then, Kevin and Margaret Davies had already married, followed by Bruce and Patty, Rod and Pam Amsden, and Peter and Verla Brown shortly after. We all settled down, established new homes, and started to produce a fine crop of kids. 17 baby musketeers, if my maths and memory are correct. Taking turns to host dinner parties, cards and slide nights. All these little kids fed and watered and sound asleep during our happy hour. Great days of fun and fellowship with mutual support in the adventures of child raising. All musketeers meeting were liberally lubricated, if you know what I mean. How we going, Teddy? The marriage of each and every musketeer weathered some major family problems, but emerged with the partnerships even stronger. Love and loyalty endured, thanks to our patient partners. We each chose the right, bright girl to share life with together. Bruce had a good memory and was a trustworthy man. I once loaned him my favourite fly fishing rod and tackle to catch trout. Bruce and Pat went on a holiday to Bright and he knew all my best spots for fishing the Ovens River. Trustworthy Bruce returned all his fishing gear in pristine condition. I got it all back 23 years later. Bruce enjoyed and gained strength from the ethics of Freemasonry. He was a past master whose Masonic Lodge, aptly named the Lodge of Good Companions. Bruce was not an overly religious young man, but I do know that Bruce was a good man, a good son to his doting parents, a good, loving and caring husband to dear Patty, a good father to Andy, Becky and Matt, and a very proud grandpa. A good friend of Teddy and my wife Pat and I, and a good and loyal friend to all that knew him well. We'll all miss this good man. It's time to say goodbye to my old mate Bruce. Goodbye until we meet again on that great big tennis court in the sky. Yeah, leave him here.
When he starts talking, I'll be jumping.
You do without moving his lips.
Thank you for those wonderful, wonderful memories, Max. Wonderful memories. Now, when Beck and Matty recall growing up with their dad, it's the little things that resonate and mean so much. Memories that together help form a picture of a caring, loving dad. Beck has written a beautiful tribute and has asked me to read it on her behalf. And this is her tribute to her cherished dad. My dad, Bruce Biddington, was a fantastic father. He loved us kids unconditionally. I'm sure we tried to push the boundaries a few times. Teaching me to drive would have been one of these times. Sorry, Dad, I didn't understand that you wanted me to stop when you kept yelling it. But he didn't falter in his love. He was also a great father-in-law and an adoring grandfather. Our friends became his friends. He always made everyone feel welcome. I would like to share some of the messages we have received from our friends. Bruce was a great bloke. He was always very personable and easygoing. He was such a wonderful person. I loved Bruce. He was always alive at any event. many fond memories as a teenager. He was such a lovely man. I had great fond times spent with him. Lovely soul and a lovely gentleman. Fond memories of Bruce, such a kind-hearted soul. Was always a great fella and easy to talk with. Always had open arms for everybody. Grouse memories of him. A great friendly bloke that made me feel comfortable and welcome. Some of my funniest memories of my dad are how bad a sailor he was. Every one of us kids was stuck on a yacht with Dad at some time going nowhere. My time was on a family holiday to Great Keppel Island. The hirers kept coming out in their speedboat to see if he wanted to be towed back to shore. Dad kept insisting that the wind would come back up and we would sail back in. On the fourth time they visited, they insisted that he be towed back in, as we'd been bobbing out there without a wind for the whole morning between Rockhampton and the island. He was determined, wasn't he? Dad was also unflappable. When I crashed my first car, I was freaking out what he was going to say. Dad arrived home. He came down the back stairs at Joy Street to see the mangled front of my car. Matt and his prep friend were standing there also examining the wreck. The prep friend looks at Dad and says, "Mum's accident was better. She smashed a windscreen." Dad turned to me and said, "Try harder next time." And now I need a scotch. He then went back inside. All my panic for nothing. Dad wasn't fazed by it. Dad's advice to me was always helpful. While I was living in Newport, Dad was working around the corner in Yarraville when I broke my toe. In panic, I rang Dad to get advice. "Dad, I think I've broken my toe. What should I do?" Dad replied, "See a doctor." Brilliant, stupidly, that had been something I hadn't thought to do. Dad had some great quips. His dad jokes were really bad though. Some of the legendary things he said that really stick in my head are, when David and I turned up at Baronia on a Friday night, unannounced, we wanted to get married, and Dave was going to ask for Dad's permission. We stayed for hours and Dave didn't bring it up at all. So we again turned up the next Friday night, unannounced, and Dave gets up the nerve to take Dad aside and ask the big question. Dad sat there calmly, waited until Dave finished and said, "You were supposed to ask me this last week." Sitting with Dad, telling him that I now enjoy drinking scotch like he did. I had discovered Chivas Regal and Coke. Dad replied, "I'll buy you some metho. You'll never realise the difference with Coke." Fast forward to getting the wedding invitations printed. The printer tells Dad that his name would be written first as he was the person giving his daughter away. Dad replied, "Giving her away? She's costing me a bloody fortune to get rid of her." Thanks for that, Dad. Last but not least, Mum and Dad came to my 20-week ultrasound to see the pictures of their first grandchild. It's now this big 6'8". We are all looking at the screen and I said to Dad, "Look at the new Collingwood supporter." Well, Dad turned to me and replied, "Don't be stupid, love. The lady showed us the baby had a brain." Sorry, Dad. After all that, Aiden turned to the dark side and barracks for Hawthorn. You could never convince any of your kids or grandkids to follow your beloved Bombers. Tonight I will raise a glass of scotch, probably with Coke, and thank you for being my dad. You will always be my hero. I love you, Dad. Thank you, Beck. Beautiful sentimental tribute. Now, Charlie Petty, a wonderful neighbour from Mount Waverley who has remained a true and loyal friend to both Bruce and Patty, will now share his memories. Thank you, Charlie.
I'm in 1962. 56 years ago, Pat and Bruce moved in as neighbours to us at Joy Street, Mount Waverley, and we've been friends ever since then. We soon got to know Pat And all their friends, as Pat was constantly arranging parties. We always had a New Year's Eve dress-up party and they were a joy to attend. Bruce did have some health problems throughout his life. Over a period of 20 or more years, he had 2 heart bypass operations, but he never complained and always maintained a positive outlook. We all had lots of weekends together at Rye, Rosebud, Bright and the Gold Coast, all full of enjoyable memories. We had a trip to England, London and Paris. We had a night at the theatre seeing Miss Saigon, and we wound up in Paris with a night at the Moulin Rouge. Pat and I remember that specifically because there was a notice on our table saying that the extra drinks were 400 francs or our money $100. And we got that thirsty and they put an extra drink on our table and we didn't want to drink it, but we succumbed and we drank it. And thank goodness they didn't give us a bill. Bruce and I really did have similar backgrounds. Bruce did his national service in the Air Force. I did mine in the Army at Puckapunyal. Being of the same age, build, etc., it was fairly natural that we were very competitive. We played squash, chess, an occasional game of golf. Neither of us was better than the other and enjoyed our games good-naturedly. Of course, we sometimes had all sorts of problems and always supported each other through them. Pat and Bruce moved to Veronia many years ago, but we stayed firm friends, having many dinners and nights out. In the 1960s, another one of my friends was an ardent Hawthorn supporter, and we went to many a game together. He passed away a few years ago, and I still think of him whenever I watch a game with Hawthorn playing. I can assure you that our 56 years of friendship, there will be many moments that trigger thoughts of Bruce. We'll miss you, old friend.
Thank you, Charlie. What a font of memories you've got there. Bruce was so thrilled when his family increased with Beck's husband Dave and Matty's partner Beck. He loved and respected them just as they did him. And when his family further increased with the births of his precious grandchildren, Bruce was ecstatic. He was a real hands-on grandfather to Aidan, Tyson and Charlotte. Aidan loved being his pop's right-hand man, helping him clean the pool or feeding the birds, and his pop would always have a special project for them to work on together. Mini golf was another hobby they enjoyed together. And Tyson and Charlotte were fortunate that whilst their new home was being built, they lived for 2 years at their pop's house, and so early on formed a very strong bond with their papa. Matty is so grateful his dad always put his children's needs first. Family was everything to him. And it's Matty who will now pay tribute to his dad, who was also his best mate.
You'll have to bear with me a little bit. I was down at the circumstance. Sorry, is that better? Ode to the big fella. First of all, I would just like to sincerely thank everybody in attendance today and for all the love and support people far and wide have expressed over recent weeks with Dad's passing. It's a massive testimony to the amazing person that Dad was and how he affected so many people on so many different levels. On a personal note, some of the condolence messages and memories offered from people I've known throughout the years that haven't necessarily been in regular contact with as time has progressed was nothing short of amazing. Dad had that way of connecting with people, regardless of circumstance or age, and to receive these genuine messages from so many circles of life was again extremely overwhelming. In particular, our family would really like to pay a special heartfelt acknowledgement to Val and Charles Petty, Barb Lewis, Loretta and Dale, Lee and Trace, for their super efforts supporting and assisting Mum over this period. Not only for the simplest things of having a quick chat or a quick drop-in, but also for the multiple to and froms when assisting Mum to get from the various hospitals from the time Dad was admitted many weeks ago. Your selflessness during this period is forever grateful. Now on to the big fella. I have unfortunately and fortunately stood behind this platform or have been in attendance for too many great individuals' final farewells. Whilst I love those people dearly and was honoured to be a part of their service on whatever level, this is by far the hardest one yet to front up to outside my bro's departure a few years ago. How do you best try and pay tribute to someone who has had such an influence in your life in such a short time frame? Whether that's someone who shares the same surname as you, such as Andy being my brother, or a staunch mate we lost not long ago, being Josh Sapper-Satwell, who was basically a brother from another mother. Words are hard to come by in both situations, but the reason I've struggled with this more so is that not only gave me life, but he was also my best mate. Dad taught me a lot of life lessons over the journey. At the time, you don't always necessarily appreciate those life teachings, but at some point in time, they all resonate. I'll try to lighten the mood shortly about some of the awesome memories that Big Brucey left on myself, family and friends. There is one thing I have to say before then. Whilst Dad instilled so many qualities upon all us kids being the big cheese, whether that be laughter, admiration, trust, loyalty, and the multitude of qualities I could reel off that would make this longer than needed, the biggest thing that rings true that I have the utmost respect for is his courage. Courage can be described in many ways. As football lovers, it can be flying blind into a pack, sticking up for a mate in the blue when you know things aren't going to end well, but you have a crack anyway, or just simply dealing with life's deck of cards at that particular time when you've been dealt a rough hand. Not only was Dad unfazed by these moments in time, but he also never dwelled on it. He was a classic case of the glass half full as a supreme optimist. Dad faced a lot of health issues over the journey, as most of you are aware of, even before my understanding of these events, being too young at the time, battling each one determinedly. However, there was one example that stood out more than anything for me that depicted the definition of courage that will again always ring true, and it wasn't due to his own ill health. To home care your eldest child, again under the circumstances we were all aware of, is nothing that any parent should have to do. But both Dad and Mum rewrote the definition of that word during that period. My bro and I always loved thinking we knew we had summed up the world through various quotes we have heard over the years gone by about whatever we were debating or arguing about at the time. However, one that we could finally agree upon that sums up the old man to a T reads, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to do what is right in the face of it." Those words have got Dad written all over it, with the way he talked, with the way he took what life could throw him. Well, that part's out of my system. It's the good times. Dad was a dad that all the parent manuals envisage as a stereotype of a dad. He went over and beyond to make sure we all had what we wanted, yet at the same time set the boundaries we all needed growing up. On the same note, I could replace Dad as the word in the sentence and change it to Papa or Pop, as the joy and love he gave to Aiden, Tyson and Charlotte were as strong as a grandparent as it was a parent. Being the youngest child by a fair way gave me a special bond with Dad. Not to say it was any more unique than the time he spent with Beck or Andy. As the older siblings, it was just a different scenario. Most of our time was spent one-on-one in my early years, whether that be camping, fishing, or forward driving, playing cricket, tennis, golf or footy, or simply just chewing the fat over a beer in my later years as his mate. All those experiences have left a special mark on me, but Dad always taught me to laugh at life, so in light of that, there are a couple of things that I can share that would be more fitting than some other ones. By the time he taught me to play cricket as a youngster in the nets at Tally Ho Reserve. Clearly Dad may have had better things to do that day, but my insistence to go finally persuaded him. After bowling lollipops to me for half an hour and my apparent lack of cricketing skills in missing them all, Dad suggested we swap. Disappointed in my efforts in batting, I thought I would try to show him my wares in bowling down some thunder, only to see Dad dance up the pitch first ball and hit the thing out of the park straight over the top of my head. Lost ball from memory too, I think, it went that far. As I started the sooks, as most kids do at that age, and despised as his world record attempt at the time, I'll never forget the Cheshire Cat grin he displayed. Looking back, that was Dad's way of teaching me some of life's lessons, that you can't always win, but more so, there's no doubt he took massive satisfaction out of carting that ball out of the park after he was content on doing other things prior. As my sister has alluded to, and more than likely my bro too, if he were here, if he were able, Dad also had a unique love of sailing. To this day, and I've asked others where that passion had come from, I'm still none the wiser where it originated. Regardless of how and why though, I too was scarred like Beck by his passion for sailing. Surely anyone who can exude such confidence in any hobby must have had the expertise to walk the walk, or maybe not. I fondly remember, or I sat in a rocking chair depending on which way you look at it thereafter, a trip up the coast with a mate at an early age when Dad decided we should all take a small sailing boat out. His so-called expertise filled us with great excitement until we realised that all of Dad's directions of come about, port side, starboard, the one I remember most, swim for your life, were not necessarily directions of a captain at sea. As we started to head over the ditch to New Zealand from the east coast of Australia in a 14-foot tinny with a sail, the lifeguard struggling to reach us at full throttle for what seemed like an eternity, Captain Jack Sparrow here still had a smile on his face and the glass was still half full in his mind. He was having a blast whether he drowned us all or not. There are so many memories I could share today, but I'm sure they'll be spoken about another time as we will all remember the joy the big fella brought to us over the years. As some of my workmates will tell you, and generally most that know me well, I do have a personal flaw in not being able to abbreviate situations and have been known to be long-winded. It was clearly not a trait that Dad had, as he was always unreal at getting to the point without the bullshit. So as a leaf out of your book, Champ, we'll always love you. We'll always miss you. Fly high, bald eagle, and make sure you give Andy a couple of cheap ones in the ribs for me. Till we meet again, big fella, proud to be called your son, Junior. Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Maddie. I think all the speakers today deserve a round. It is so hard to come up here and open your heart, as all the speakers have done so beautifully today, when your emotions are so turbulent, but you all honoured him in the way he should be. Well done. Of course, Bruce has affected you all in different ways at different levels, and you've all got your own memories of what made him so unique. When his family reflect on Bruce, they recall he was happiest when surrounded by family and friends. He would, yes, describe himself as a shrinking violet. However, he was socially outgoing. In fact, he really enjoyed being in the limelight and could be relied on as a strong public speaker. He gained great pleasure from working in his vegetable garden, and as you've heard today, he loved playing sport, golf, tennis with the Battenham Tennis Club, and in earlier years he and Patty played squash, and yes, he was in his element watching the Bombers play. He believed he was the most incredible handyman, though it must be said he relied heavily on erudite to fix things. He would even glue a broken coffee cup. Most times when he tried to fix something, it ended up being a disaster, and he would bemoan to Patty that nobody had faith in his ability to fix or mend things. When Patty was doing her jigsaws, Bruce would keep himself occupied by putting together models of boat ships and planes, and this was one area he excelled at, and his collection is proudly displayed in a cabinet. And he loved astrology and could spend quite a bit of time peering through his telescope at the stars and planets. We're going to now view a collage of photos that capture special moments in Bruce's life, as well as just the everyday pleasures of spending time with family and friends.
Don't say you've gone. Say you've knocked off for a smoker, and you'll be back later on. Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. Give it to me straight, face to face. Are you really disappearing? Just another dying race. Hey, true blue. Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, I'm asking you. Hey, true blue, can you bear the load? Will you tie it up with wire just to keep the show on the road? Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. Be fading. Is your heart still there? If they sell us out like sponge cake, do you really care? Hey, true blue. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when she's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, I'm asking you. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, true
A picture's worth 1,000 words. What about memories, were they? Priceless. Of course, Paddy, our thoughts are especially with you. You have many memories to sustain you in your grief. The 3 months European holiday, trips to Vanuatu and Fiji. But more than these, you can be proud of the wonderful job you and Bruce did in raising your 3 lovely children. And Beck and Matty, your dad was selfless in ensuring you had the best life possible. He passed along to you the lessons he learned from a lifetime of experience, and none more so than to appreciate life, embracing it to the fullest. Bruce led an active, happy and significant life. His commitment to family and friends is evident in all his achievements and reflects the ethos of caring and loyalty. He saw his greatest achievements in his family, and his presence will continue in the memories you carry in your hearts. He wouldn't want you to grieve unduly, and so I imagine if he could offer you words of comfort, this is what he might say. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick at heart, go to the friends we know, and bury your sorrow in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go. It is time for us to say farewell, and so if you can, would you please stand with me? Bruce, today your family and friends have paid tribute to you, celebrated your life and said goodbye. But it's not final. For every day they will celebrate your life in some way, just by the virtue of how you help shape their lives as a husband, father, grandfather and friend. And now, the tide recedes but leaves behind bright seashells on the sand. The sun goes down but gentle warmth still lingers on the land. The music stops and yet it lingers on in sweet refrain. For every joy that passes, something beautiful remains. May God now embrace you in his eternal